Hi, everybody. It's Heather Butts with Health for Youth, and we are in the kitchen again for a very special episode. It's a Friday, so it's not our usual Sunday show, and we are here with some friends. So I'm going to actually hand it over to Dr. Ginny Mantello, who is going to introduce everybody else. She has lots of accolades and titles, but I'm going to let her tell you all they are. We're very privileged and proud to have her here today, and we are excited for the bountifulness of what she and everybody's going to make. So I'm going to head off stage and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Jenny.
Thank you, Professor Heather, and welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Ginny, and I am a public health and preventative physician, and I work as the health director for the borough president out of the borough president's office, and I'm privileged to work with our team at Borough Hall and really spread the message of good health and prevention. And I'm also very fortunate to work with a lot of wonderful people that are out in the community. Our very own preventative cardiologist, Dr. Francesco Rotatori, who is the chief of cardiology at Richmond University Medical Center. We also have Zena Pluti from the American Heart Association. And we work closely with the American Heart Association when it comes to cardiovascular health and prevention. And I think most people know that the number one cause of mortality is cardiovascular disease. And I will say, and I know you'll learn a lot today from our cardiology friend here, Dr. Rotatori, that 70% of the causes are preventable. And so it is really important to understand what are those preventable causes. And a big part of it is 80%, if you ask me, is what you eat and how you eat. We also have Nicole Toro, who's going to be here helping us. And she is a pre-med student who's also helping with today's preparation. So we have some wonderful recipes that we're going to showcase. The first one is a chickpea, quinoa, and arugula salad. We'll talk a little bit about the ingredients. We'll also talk about why those ingredients are important to incorporate into your everyday cooking and life, and why they are heart healthy. We have a green Moong, split Moong lentil curry, which we're going to serve with a little bit of basmati rice, which is cooked with peas and carrots. And then we're going to end it with a dark chocolate Chia energy bite with a little bit of cardamom to give it an Indian flavor for those that like cardamom. So before we dive into our chickpea quinoa salad, I'd love to hand it over to Dr. Rotatori to tell us about the importance of a Mediterranean diet, and for those that already have high blood pressure or cardiovascular risk or cardiovascular disease, to then incorporate the low salt version or the DASH Mediterranean diet. So Dr. Rotatori, would you like to tell us about why it's important to incorporate those ingredients that are promoted by a Mediterranean diet, and what are some of those examples? And Zena, please feel free to chime in.
Yes, thank you, Ginny. I'm very happy to be here today. So first of all, I would like to say that I don't know how credible I'm going to be with this in my head. But of course, as you mentioned before, most of what I do is trying to not have a job in the future. And what it means is that you said that 70% of heart disease is preventable. And that's the reality of what we deal with every day. I mean, we took care of patients that they have developed a heart problem, but also we wish we could have done something before. So that's why we're here today. We're here to say that one of the most important things in our daily routine, exercise and other things, but also is diet and what we eat. And what we eat plays a critical role in maintaining our heart and vessel healthy throughout our life. So generally speaking, when we talk about eating, I mean, our body needs all the ingredients. Our body needs vitamins. Our body needs protein, fat, carbohydrates. So a little bit of everything. It's the right thing to do. The Mediterranean diet as such has all these ingredients, and there are certain things though that we can when we dive into it that we can discuss to understand that some little changes that we can do probably in our routine and the way we eat can have a big impact in improving our health. So we can talk about a number of things. Well, maybe we can start by talking about protein. Of course, we need protein, and protein are very important. And the leanest way probably to obtain protein is to have vegetable protein, and that's what we're trying to show us today. It's critically important to have protein in our diet. It's not that we're exercising, we're in an active lifestyle or so. We lose protein, we need to replace protein, and that's critically important. So meat has protein, but most of people don't know that a good amount of protein and lean protein can come from vegetables.
Today's recipe, should we talk about some of the protein in today's salad that and also the lentils, which are very high in protein?
Exactly. So pretty much everything that we're proposing today has a very good content. Quinoa has a very, it's a good source of protein that's here. And then Ginny will tell you how quinoa can become so delicious just by looking at it. And then instead in the salad we had and avocado by all means. Avocado is delicious, and it also helped me to talk about a little bit the fact that avocado not only has protein but also has good fat. So as I said before, fat is not something that we don't need. Our body needs fat, but needs good fat. And oftentimes instead we tend to eat bad fat, the one that gets into our system and then doesn't get out and starts clogging the arteries. This fat instead is a good fat. It's the one that helps as overall health, cell turnover, and helps keep our arteries clean. Avocado has that, and together with protein and fibers. Well, fibers introduces another aspect, and that's carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are necessary too. So we're not here saying that you can't eat carbohydrates, and actually a good part of our meal is going to have carbohydrates. The problem with carbohydrates is that carbohydrates, they get into our system and they raise our sugar. And
they have a bad reputation because of people saying carbs are bad and cut the carbs, but they're actually very important.
It is extremely important. I mean, our fuel, our body's fuel is carbohydrates, so we cannot avoid taking carbohydrates. However, our body has an interesting. So the elevated sugar in the bloodstream can be actually poisonous for our bloodstream. Can affect the arteries. Can affect our vision. Can affect our nerves. So a lot of aspects. So we have to try to make sure that our sugar doesn't go up very quick in our bloodstream. And how do we do that? So we take carbohydrates together with fibers, and that will reduce the speed in which our sugar is going to go up in our system. And that's the key, and that's the solution. So by eating carbohydrates that have fibers, on replacing carbohydrates that have fibers, that's the solution. So here is the exact example of it.
Yeah, and so
don't let me talk everything.
No. We absolutely need you to talk, and this is all critical information because there's a lot of misinformation floating around. People tend to look at the latest fad diet, and we really don't want people to be looking for a fad diet. It has to be a lifestyle, right? So when I teach, whether it's in a high school or out in public, what I tell people is try to, there's no absolutes, right? It's not cut this out and cut that out. Try to understand what's good for you and incorporate one healthy or replace one healthy item instead of one unhealthy item. And an example might be try to cut out a simple sugar, which raises your, gives you a spike in your blood sugar, a simple carbohydrate, and replace it with a complex carbohydrate. Yeah. So for today's salad, the first course is a salad. It's got lots of color. It's got, you could see greens and reds, and that's really what we teach our young ones, right? Try to eat the rainbow. So it has arugula, avocado, quinoa, and we talked about quinoa, chickpeas, tomato, cucumber, cilantro. I love cilantro. I'm Indian. And so I flavor everything with cilantro and a little bit of red onion as well. And when we were talking about healthy fats, you want to try to incorporate mono and polyunsaturated fats in your diet. Those are what we call the MUFAs and PUFAs. And avocado is an example, but you should use either olive oil or avocado oil for cooking. And for our salad today, the dressing that we're going to show you in a minute, incorporates extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of red hot because Indians like it spicy, and so do Italians, I think, a little bit.
Well, I'm learning a lot here today, but yes, definitely spices is good.
And then we also have some lime juice, lemon juice, a little bit of honey or agave, and some minced garlic and black pepper.
And to put everything out there, so then using the spices also helps you minimizing the use of salt, which instead usually is the one thing that we try to use to give flavor.
Do you want to talk about salt and how much people should be taking in? One other thing before I hand that over to you, we did use canned chickpeas, but I want to point out that we washed them at least several times. So make sure you try to get a low sodium if you're going to use a can. And if you are unable to get a low sodium can, make sure you wash it thoroughly before you incorporate it into your diet, because then that gets rid of most of the preservative or the sodium that's in there. But it's important, salt is in everything, even when we don't realize there's salt in it. So learn to read a label and look at what's the quantity of salt. And one other example, this tells us it has 340 milligrams, which is 15% of the salt. But if you're not mindfully looking at what the portion is, that was only in a half a cup, half a serving size, which the serving size is half a cup. So when you measure this out, it's probably a cup. So it's probably got double that amount. And so you have to be careful. So what is a recommendation, Dr. Rotatori, for salt intake for an average person and then someone with, high blood pressure or risks for heart disease?
Well, I mean, we can use the number of 2 grams of sodium as not to give too many numbers, but and we would say for someone that has high blood pressure, we should stay below that, way below that. So again, as Ginny was saying, I mean, we have to get familiar with just looking at the back of the food that we eat and just look at the amount of sodium, and that's what salt is, and try to limit that and find tricks like what she said. This would be too much sodium, but instead if washed thoroughly, I mean, the amount of sodium goes down significantly. And again, as I said, use other alternatives to flavor our food. It's important, and minimize the use of salt. What happens with salt? Well, so the entire population is divided in 2 big categories, and unfortunately, the category that take advantage of this is very limited. So there are salt sensitive and salt resistant, and people that are salt sensitive, like me, for instance, we don't have a very efficient system to get rid of the extra salt. So when we eat salt remains in our system, and by doing that, also increase the volume of water that is retained by our body, and that causes high blood pressure. Causes high blood pressure, a number of other problems. The leg swelling. I feel like when I eat pizza the morning after, my hands are swollen. I see it from my ring. That's the way it is. I mean, it takes time for me to get rid of salt, and the blood pressure goes up. Then throughout the lifetime, our blood pressure tends to go up anyway, because there's a little bit of hardening of our vessels. But by all means, that we can change for now.
After a Chinese or a Japanese meal, I try not to eat the soy sauce, because I wake up and you're right, my rings are tight.
You feel it immediately. Yeah.
You feel it immediately, and if you weigh yourself, you usually weigh more because you contain water because of the high salt content in those meals.
Now, of course, being Italian, we'll never say that you can't eat pizza. But I'm just saying that so it's a load of salt, and you need to be aware of that. So then maybe for the following days, you have to be extra careful in the use of salt. Okay. So, yeah.
So for the salad, all we did was we took all of those wonderful ingredients, and please, for the audience, there's recipes right here for you all to take. We took the quinoa, chickpeas, baby arugula, cherry tomatoes, avocado, cucumber, onion, and cilantro, and we mixed it all up, as you can see. And then we created a dressing with fresh lemon juice, lime juice, a little bit of red hot, extra virgin olive oil, a tiny bit of agave, and some minced garlic and black pepper.
I was very heavy on black pepper.
You were heavy on black pepper. It's okay. It's a lot of salad. And then we also put some fresh cilantro in there. So there's definitely some here for tasting. And then for the next course, we have a split moong dal or lentil with some basmati rice that we've prepared with some peas and carrots. So you could really do this recipe with any lentil, but split moong or whole moong has a very high fiber content because of the skin is still on it. So if you use like a lentil that is without a skin, obviously the fiber content is less. Interestingly enough, for Mediterranean diets, they actually recommend 40% of your diet should be carbohydrates, which you won't see in other diets. Usually it says 30%, but 40 to 50% in a Mediterranean is carbohydrates. But a lot of them are complex, right? Complex carbohydrates. So what is a complex carbohydrate? Quinoa, oats. We'll talk about oats because that's our dessert. Lentils, chickpeas, those are all complex carbohydrates. They take a long time to break down in your body, and they actually prevent that sharp rise in blood sugar. So the rise in blood sugar is slow. And what you want to avoid is those spikes or those sharp spikes in blood sugar. And after
you know why you want to avoid those sharp spikes? So because our body, as I said before, we have an amazing system. So we have a system to immediately lower our sugar when it goes up because it's considered poisonous. However, a lot of people out there, this system genetically is not as efficient as it's supposed to be. And those are the people that are predisposed to develop diabetes, impaired glucose tolerance, and so on. So it's almost like having an engine that works, but doesn't work perfectly. So if you overuse it, then it's going to burn out completely.
True.
If you keep it working normally instead, it's going to last forever.
Like a car.
So yes, exactly. So by doing this, we're basically protecting our system and make it last forever. That's it. Forever and ever.
Okay. And then once we go over the next couple of recipes, I'm going to have Zena come up and talk about some resources through the American Heart Association that we would love to make sure everybody knows how to access. Something we give out all the time when we do blood pressure in the community is what's called Life Essential Aids. And then there's also how to eat better. And we'll talk about incorporating all of those tips into your life. And then we also have a cooking cookbook that is here for those that are here and want to take with them. Okay. So for the next part, we're going to talk about the next course is, as I was saying, the lentils and rice. We are looking at the recipe for a split moong. What I did was, because we were trying to get it cooked quickly, I used a traditional pressure cooker. You could do this in an Instapot. You could do this in a slow cooker. You could do it in a conventional pot. You wash the lentils, ideally soak them for a little while ahead. And then basically you just add water, a little salt, turmeric powder, a little chili powder, and then let them simmer till they're cooked. So cook the lentils separately. And then, the spices that go into it really was a combination of chopped onions, tomatoes, and then some Indian spices, cardamom, and cilantro, fresh cilantro, and also a little bit of the garam masala powder, which is an Indian spice that incorporates cloves, whole black pepper, cardamom, cinnamon. So it's a combination of about 12 Indian spices that they grind. Actually, in an Indian house, it's done fresh. So we were able to get this made already from the store. So you could get the garam masala from a store. Most stores have it now. And then you can add it on top with, and I put a little cumin seed. So a little bit of, and then I started off with a avocado or olive oil. In Indian cooking, sometimes on the very top, after it's cooked, they will add a little ghee, which is a purified butter, which again gets a bad reputation because it's a saturated fat. But if you use a small amount, fats are not necessarily bad for you. So you add a little bit of the ghee with the cumin and some garam masala, and that just brings out the flavor of the lentil.
Sounds delicious.
We'll have you actually taste some, and then I topped it
Because,
with.
I keep looking
You
at
keep
this.
looking, and you're hungry, and we have some. We have our youngest audience who's 2.5, and I always say that incorporate these things early in your diet. And she loves fruits and vegetables, right? What's your favorite fruit, young lady? What do you like? Watermelon? Grapes? I think so.
Grapes.
Okay, so that's, and then we have a rice, and we used a basmati rice. So you could use a brown rice, which is probably, you get a brown basmati as well, which is more of a complex carbohydrate, as I was saying. We used a white basmati. The nice thing about a basmati rice is that it has a lower glycemic index. And again, glycemic index, not to get too complicated, really is, again, what helps break down that sugar and cause a slower rise in sugar. So if you use like a sticky rice or like a long grain rice, that has a higher glycemic index and it becomes sugar much quicker in the bloodstream, whereas a complex or a rice with a lower glycemic index or a complex carbohydrate takes a longer time for the blood sugar to rise. So we have
It's a
peas
good
and
tool
carrots.
to use, the glycemic index.
Yeah.
You can look it up online or so, but you look for a specific food and you look at the glycemic index. I also always bring this example to my patients to understand. It's like if you take an orange juice.
Yeah.
If you take an orange and you eat it, and you take an orange, or you squeeze it and you drink the orange juice, the glycemic index is very different, despite the fact that you're eating the same amount of sugar. Well, the difference is that with the orange, you eat the fibers together, and that's, as we said before, it raises the sugar much slower in your system, and so the glycemic index is lower. So it's a way to be mindful. There are even fruit in general is very good for patients that they have the problem with sugar. Some of the fruits have a high glycemic index, and some of them are less. So it's a way to look at things in a smart way.
So and we also added peas and carrots into the rice, so that adds some fiber and also slows down the spike in sugar. Right? Again, that is fiber in the rice, and then it helps. And then for our last portion. Zena, since you were kind enough to put it together, did you want to talk about the dark chocolate chia bites and an optional cardamom?
Happy to. All right, so let's see here. I'm gonna try to get it in frame. We have our energy bites. These have no added sugar. They're gluten-free, vegan, and we have an example here on this tray. They essentially contain rolled oats, natural peanut butter, honey, or pure maple syrup. We used agave in this case. So an idea of how you can use alternatives in the kitchen. There's also chia seeds. We did add some dark chocolate chips in there for extra sweetness and crunch, as well as just a touch of sea salt. So if you'd like, as Ginny mentioned, you can add other spices such as cardamom to your taste preference. And we always try to keep in mind making sure that these are accessible, easy to make, and no hassle in the kitchen. So
the last time I made these, we used almond butter. So that's another example of how you could use different seed butters and make the same sort of, and it satisfies that little sweet craving that we get at the end of the day.
We're only human. We get sweet.
I think that's also the key message here today is that there's no absolutes, and you have to make it a lifestyle. If you feel like you want to eat a little sweet, try to think about what is a healthier version and eat that, right? This is an example. For me personally, I'll have an ounce of dark chocolate, and it does it. And I actually found these dark chocolate bites that have pistachio and some almonds and craisins, and I just take a small little piece of it, and that's it. So that again, make sure as much as possible that you replace. Now, what we use today is all plant-based, but none of this. I mean, there's no reason that you cannot put a lean protein like fish or lean chicken. And the Mediterranean diet also does encourage eating fish a couple of times a week. If you're going to use chicken, if that's your preferred, meat, make sure that it is skinless and as lean as possible. And then you can also use other meats and proteins, but be mindful of the quantity that you're
Exactly.
eating. I think a big part of what's happening or happened a long time ago was that we forgot to teach people the right portion sizes, and so oftentimes we go to a restaurant and one of the things I used to tell people when I went outside, give me half the portion to go before you even serve it, because I know that what they're going to serve is way beyond what is the regular recommended portion, but way more than what I can eat. And if it's sitting there in front of me, I'm going to eat it.
Yes.
And so put it away, and I'll have it for lunch tomorrow. So Azina, would you like to just talk a little bit about some of the resources and about American Heart Association and how healthy lifestyle, healthy cooking, healthy food is such a key component of what you and the Heart Association are always promoting?
Absolutely. So my name is Zaina with the American Heart Association here in New York City, and we constantly encourage the mind-heart-body connection. So there's a key link between what you put into your body, in this case, eating better, and how that promotes overall heart health. The American Heart Association has what's called Life Essential 8. These are 8 health factors and 8 health behaviors that you can reference as a form of checklist to take control of your health and not to overwhelm you, but to give you tangible steps for improving your health in each of these key categories. We also have one-pagers on each of those 8. So for instance, here we have the infographic on how to eat better, and it speaks to everything that Dr. Mantello and Dr. Rotatori have mentioned today. We've also brought our cooking and color cookbooks in both English and Spanish. So these will be out for distribution here. And you have several recipes that can be tangible, easy to make for your cooking at home. The American Heart Association has a library of resources seated in science and evidence. If I could leave you with 3 key words, it would be to plan ahead. Think of 2 to 3 key meals that are not hard to make, simple, easy. So when you're, crunched for time or looking for simple ingredients, those can be your go-to instead of ordering out or choosing an unhealthier option. Prioritize. So all these ingredients that we used today in our demonstration, fruits and vegetables, beans, lentils, oats, all these key elements to your healthy diet, prioritize those. And when you're plating your meal, try and make sure that at least half of your plate is filled with fruits and vegetables, a quarter of that plate has lean proteins, and then the remaining quarter of that plate has whole grains. So really appreciate being here. Thank you so much for including me.
And here's an example. So we filled half the plate with our salad, and we have our protein in the salad. We also have some lentils, a little bit of rice and peas. And then, of course, we're going to top it all with our dark chocolate Chia bite. I would say that Nicole helped us do all the chopping, and we're, as you can see, it's not complicated, just needs some time, and as Zina said, prep work. So we're super excited to be here and to showcase all of this food. We're going to encourage people to come and taste some of the things that we've showcased. And Professor Heather, who is incredible, she's a force in this community, and she's always helping us, and we partner on many, many, many things. We do regular blood pressure measurements at the pantry here on Friday mornings. And we also give out these Life Essential 8s. We give out blood pressure cards. And we teach people how to monitor their blood pressure at home. So please follow Health for Youth. And Professor Heather, we'll let you wrap it up for us.
Yes, I wanted to thank both of you for being here. This was highly educational. I don't know if this is coming across on the screen, but it is very aromatic.
Aromatic. Yes, that's right.
So we want to thank Bayshore and Beyond that sponsored this, along with Health for Youth's building. And thank you both for being here. And we hope that you will come back. And
yes.
like double duty here. We hope you'll come back for another episode of In the Kitchen.
I forgot to say, this is part of a series of healthy lessons. And then we will be talking in subsequent lessons about We'll talk specifically about fiber, we'll talk protein, we'll talk fats, we'll talk more about, take a deeper dive into healthy fats, unhealthy fats, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, and so on and so forth. I want to thank our audience. How's that rice and lentil, young ladies?
Yeah, we're gonna all find out in a minute.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up? Okay, all right.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our
Yes, and thank you, Tom,
Tom.
for all the production.
yes.
Bye, everybody. See you